Hi, I'm Jono, and if you're new here, I do pencil drawings. So I'm busy planning a new drawing, and I'm finding myself in a familiar space. I'm falling around with it again, and it seems like this is just something that I need to get used to. But one thing that it did is it reminded me of the previous drawing that I did, The Gardener, where I found myself in a very similar space. And rather than getting frustrated about not knowing which direction to take and feeling a little bit lost in the creative process, I thought I'd just acknowledge that this is the space that I often find myself in when starting a new drawing. It's definitely a cathartic thing for me to reflect on for my process, but I thought it might be interesting for anyone in a similar space to also reflect on. Huge thank you to this video sponsor, Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them later. The biggest takeaway for me with The Gardener was to trust the process. I had other plans for that drawing. I thought it was going to go in a completely different direction. I'm really grateful that I recorded some clips from that experience. I could tap into the frustration that I was feeling when I was trying the planning process, trying to figure out what that drawing might look like. Okay, so I've been trying to plan this drawing for the last 2 weeks. I thought it would be quick. I thought I'd be able to just bang it out. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew the elements I wanted to use in the composition. As I finished the one drawing, I knew that I was going to start the next drawing. It's been so frustrating. I thought it would be easy. One of the first things that I ran into was expectation management. I had an idea of what that drawing might look like. I had really big expectations for it. I was excited about it. And it seemed like the reality was just completely different. I had to manage my expectations with time, so the amount of time that the drawing took to get planned. I thought it would maybe be 1 week. I thought it might be a really quick transition. That ended up not being the case at all. And I had to come back to myself and just be present and acknowledge the process every step of the way. And then shifting my expectations as well in terms of the content. I thought the artwork would be a completely different artwork. So I kept trying to create something to anchor the piece, to try and give it that depth that I was hoping for. And it never happened. And then there was this one random shot that kind of crept through. And it's not that I even liked the composition. The composition seemed a little bit boring for that shot. I put it together just to see if it would work. Everything I was doing afterwards lent itself to that shot. It started feeling like I was fighting against something to not use this image. It's like the artwork wanted to exist, and all the planning I was doing every day just seemed to work with this particular composition rather than something else that I thought is what I wanted to do. One of the things that's crucial for me with a new artwork is it's really tough for me to put my finger on it, so I'm just going to call it like an X factor. There's like an essence to it, which in some cases is there, in other cases isn't, and I don't want to start the drawing unless I know that it's present. And to try and cultivate it, I have no clue how to do that. It's not something that I have a formula that can happen, but I'm so glad that I waited for that X factor with this artwork. And it took a while for it to come. I identified that it would eventually arrive with this piece, but I couldn't compromise on the finished artwork. I had to wait until it was fully realized before I could start drawing, and I'm really glad I did that. And it's been a very interesting experience of an artwork feeling like it's dictating what's happening. Like, I didn't think that this is anything that it would look like. Like, I didn't think that this is the artwork that I think I'm going to have to draw. I came to the studio this morning and I was just chatting to my team about it. As soon as I accepted that this was a piece that I'm going to make, there was like a sense of relief. Firstly, not having something that I know that I want to draw is an incredibly uncomfortable space for me to be in. I feel very stagnant. So there's a relief in that I think I know what I'm going to do now. Everything just worked towards making this piece come together. Fortunately, I didn't force myself to do something that didn't align with me. I was sensitive enough to allow myself to get pulled, but I really fought back a lot with that process. It caused a lot of friction and a lot more pain than was necessary. There's an element of doubting myself during this piece, and I lean heavily on my community, on the people that I surround myself with, to check in continuously. It goes both ways. And one way, I trust their judgment and I trust what they're saying, and often it'll help me just find clarity through acknowledgement. But other times when they push back against me, I can find clarity when I don't like the pushback.
It was really interesting to be in the studio when you were going through the process of planning for this, because there was so much planning and building, and we kind of didn't really know what was going on. You were asking other people's advice as well, like your broader community that you trust, and everyone had opinions on it, and some were positive, some were negative, and there was a lot of like, should we do this, should we not do this? But you had to kind of trust the artwork and surrender to how the artwork was being made, rather than any sort of logic or any sort of opinion of yourselves or anyone else, which was a really beautiful thing to witness.
Well, at least I was just very confused at the time, because I do lean on you guys and on the support to bounce ideas off of. And this one was a lot more raw and a lot more vulnerable. And there was actually pushback. There were people telling me I shouldn't do it and that it's too graphic and it wasn't for everyone. And that's difficult for me, because I think there's an element of bravery when I'm isolated, when I'm by myself. And while it's really useful for me to have my community and to like bounce things off, and it can give me courage and bravery to do something, it can also act the opposite in some ways. And this was a case where it was acting the opposite, where it wasn't aligned with what other people had seen my work be, and people that I trust and people that are close to me, but I had to still push back against them and still do something that felt really vulnerable for me.
I think compared to the other artworks you were doing before this, and the contrast between you servicing the business side of your art practice, doing the things that are going to commercially sell, versus that like creative urge within you to do something for yourself. I think you even were like, whether this sells or not, I'm going to do it, because you had to get it out of your system.
That's true. I'm feeling a stronger pull in that direction. And that's always a conversation for artists, is do you do stuff that's commercial versus do you do what you're being pulled towards? And I think for the longest time, fortunately, what I was getting pulled towards was actually commercially viable. So that was really lucky for me. But there are moments in time where what I'm getting pulled towards is really difficult to see or to hang on your wall or justify hanging on your wall. And I think that those moments are actually really scary, because it means that for you to continue with your career, you have to potentially sacrifice one of the life sources of your career, which is financial viability. If you aren't creating work that might be sold, you might not be able to continue to do this.
I think The Gardener was such a testament to risk-taking and bravery and trust. Even I was like a bit worried, because I was like, I think it'll be cool, but also as your editor, I was like, I hope this is gonna be worth it.
Yeah, and it sold immediately. And that was such a beautiful acknowledgement as well. I know in the purest form that shouldn't be that important, but I mean, if we're being completely real, it matters. You know, that acknowledgement that a collector is willing to buy your artwork does matter. I'm currently planning a drawing, and I'm so much more open to that drawing being a little bit less conventional because of what happened with The Gardener. And just the experience I've been having over the last couple months have really just galvanized that sense of trusting my gut, especially with the planning of artworks. I really fought back with The Gardener a lot, and the artwork beat me up actually, and it won. And it brought itself into being, and Gemma and I are busy working on a new piece now, and it's difficult. It's been going on for months, but I think we're in a space where just letting go and letting it tell its own story is the way forwards. Finally, one of the last hurdles that started to show itself was a fear of making a mistake. When I got to that center figure, I'd put in so much work and had so many great moments, but then I knew that the crux of the artwork had to be done, and that felt really challenging for me to tackle. I've been putting off this middle figure. I think I've been feeling really nervous to start on it, because that's where all the focus and the detail is going to be. And so there's almost a sadness sometimes, I think, when you get to the end of an artwork, and if it didn't live up to the potential that you thought it was going to have before you started it. I felt scared that this project, which had given me so much life and so much growth, was going to come to an end. And that meant that I would have to repeat the whole process again. I'd have to be unsure again. And that was difficult to let go. And there can be almost a subconscious sabotaging of the process to try and keep you in the same project, letting you stay attached to it and almost never complete it, because as soon as it's completed, it's a commitment to this is the final form. And that was really difficult for me to let go of, and that was really scary. This video can serve as a reminder for myself, the cycles of growth within an artwork, the cycles of planning, and these things will always repeat themselves. And if we continuously get frustrated with them, it's a much less enjoyable experience than if we just accept them and view them as part of the process and almost embrace and enjoy them as that. I don't know what's going to happen with this artwork, and that's a really uncomfortable space for me. I feel like the pathway forwards isn't clear. There were a lot of lessons from this artwork, a lot of takeaways which I'm trying to hold on to, but I'm in it again. I'm here again, and I'm struggling with the same thing. So I'm continuously trying to be mindful and remember that these cycles are companions. They're difficult, but they're companions, and they're getting easier. Before I end this video, I Just want to give a quick shout out to this video sponsor, Squarespace. I've been working with them for a couple of years now, and they've played a huge role in my career. Not only in helping me maintain this channel and sponsoring these videos, but more importantly, early on in my career, I was looking for a way to showcase my work, make it easy for collectors to find me and get in touch with me. And I felt that Squarespace did that effortlessly. I didn't have time to learn HTML and build a reliable website. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them and set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use the offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. I hope you found this dive into the hurdles of this artwork a little bit helpful. I think we all experience these things, and knowing that you're not alone and experiencing these struggles, I think would be really helpful. Let me know what your experience is usually with your process with planning artworks, or if you can relate to some of the struggles that I experienced in this one. It's always fun to read those in the comments. Thanks for the support. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.